Good morning. Welcome to morning meeting. So, story time. All right. So, this one is from when I was in training development. I did that work for about 10 years and I traveled all over the United States and I trained trainers to implement welfare work programs in their areas. Worked with a lot of county offices and things like that. Anyway, so I was scheduled to go to Nogales, Arizona, and Nogales is around the border of Mexico. There's Nogales, Arizona, Nogales, Mexico. And so I called ahead to get the lay of the land, speak with the supervisor, that sort of thing. And I said, hey, do you think that I should bring my passport or anything? And he just was like, well, as long as you don't look Mexican, you're fine. And I just laughed. Now, he'd never met me, so he didn't know, right? But I was like, noted. Now, here's the reason why, all right? I've been to Tijuana, I think, twice in my life that I can recall. And the first time I went over, I went with my family because we were, I think, in San Diego for a bowl game because my brother was a football player in college. And so we decided we were going to go over to Tijuana and do some shopping. Went over, had a great time, no problems, right? So we're coming back through the border and having to go through security and all of that. And my mom and dad go through, my brother goes through, and they're no problem. And then they get to me, and the guy looks at me, where were you born? And it was like that. And I was like, and I was totally taken aback. I wasn't expecting this, right? I mean, they just got through no problem. And I was like, what? And he said it again. Where were you born? And I went, Nebraska. And he didn't believe me. And I went, who would lie about that? And so then he said something else to me. And I went, black, white, brown. That's how that works. Now, my father, don't be a smartass, right? I was about 16. What are the odds that I'm not going to be a smartass? Granted, this was probably not the time to be a smartass, but I was just so floored by the experience. I just wasn't expecting it. And obviously, I got through the border control area. So then the next time this happens, I'm with some friends. I had a friend that had moved to San Diego. We'd known each other since I was 8 and she was 9. And I was out there hanging out, and we had gone over to Tijuana to just party and have some fun. Went over, no problem. Coming back, car got stopped. And the only person questioning the car was little old me. That's the only one. So there was a white girl, 2 Mexicans, and then me. And I got questioned. And it was just so funny. And I thought, am I wearing some sort of sign on my forehead? I have no idea. But it was just funny. So when the Nogales trip came up, I just figured, well, I probably should have my passport with me just in case I decide I want to go over cross border. I didn't because I just didn't want to be bothered. I didn't want the headache of having to deal with that. So I just didn't even do that. And there were some other things that happened when I was in Nogales that I was like, there might be bigger ones over there. Meaning, okay, so let me just back up for a minute. There was a black widow spider in my bed the first night when I got there. And then when I was at the training facility and I was relaying this story to the people later, they're like, Kori, come here. And these are all people who, some of them are speaking some English and some really aren't, but they all understood my story about the black widow spider in the bed. They had me come outside because all the doors to the workshop areas of the classrooms open to the outside. And there was a freaking tarantula outside the door. And they're like, oh, it's a baby tarantula. I'm like, oh, piss off, because I'm terrified of spiders. So anyway, so that happened too while I was in Nogales. So I was just really not enjoying myself for the 2 weeks I was there because of that. I was just terrified. But anyway, lovely people though. Great food, lovely people. No problems there. But anyway, I'm just floored by the fact that here it is, 2024, going into 2025, and we're still having these challenges with race and ethnicity. I don't get it. I think I mentioned in a video before that someone over on TikTok commented on one of my videos and said that, she was apologetic, but was saying, I didn't know you weren't white by looking at me. And I was like, wow, that's really funny. I've never had that happen. I've been mistaken for lots of other ethnic groups, but I've never in my entire life thus far had someone look at me and think that I actually am just 100% white, that I passed that well. I've never had that happen. So I thought that was really funny that this person thought that. But I do, as I said, I think it's sad that 2024 going into 2025, we're still having this problem. And then I started doing some research. I was writing an article. I just created a Substack. And so I was writing an article for my Substack. And it was about multiracial people. and making America great. Not again, but before, now, and in the future. Multiracial people make America great. So I was doing some research on with census data and things like that, and I came across the 2020 census information. Now, the census, way back, the census did not allow you to choose more than one racial group. You were either this or you were that, right? And so that's what people did. Now, up to 2020 and before 2020, actually, they started changing the census so that people could indicate what they actually identified with. What were they, right? They could actually do that. So the 2020 census indicates that the group of multiracial people, not only is it increasing, it's accelerating. And so the estimate is that by 2060, that'll be the largest demographic in the United States. People who identify as multiracial. So they're identifying as 2 or more races. Okay? That's what, like 35 years from now? So I'll be about 89 when that happens, give or take. But I said it's also accelerating. And the other thing to keep in mind is that because that data wasn't being collected before, the numbers are probably not completely accurate. They're probably off a bit, right? And not everybody completes the census. So they're probably off just a wee bit. But that's a number to remember by 2060, and probably before that would be my guess. And that gave me a lot of hope. I don't know about you, but it did for me. I was like, yeah, that right there, I'm happy about that. But then the other thing I learned was that the people who identify as white only has been on the decline, and has been on the decline for some time now. It mentions something like 3 cycles or something, but the bottom line is that the white population, people identifying as white only, is on the decline. So I'm telling you this because I want you to think about, for a minute, the propaganda that we've all been exposed to, certainly before President Obama's time. Okay? So when it was ramping up and he was running for president, think back, go in the Wayback Machine, and think back to what the propaganda was back then and how that propaganda has affected things going forward, because it didn't go away. And we saw an increase in white supremacy. That activity increased before that time, after that time. It increased. You can go look that up, right? Southern Poverty Law Center, NAACP, the FBI, right? So you can look that stuff up. But why? What ramped it up? And then I was watching this interview, and it was brief, and I can't remember who was doing the interview or who this white man actually is. It's an older white man. He's a white supremacist guy. And this is a couple weeks ago I was watching this. And the interviewer was asking about why he was voting for the Republican side. And he said, because he's worried about the decline of the white people. He's worried about the decline of the white people. He wants more white babies. And that made me think about the abortion issue. And I'm like, well, isn't that interesting? So I'm sharing this to say, hey, pretty soon, like it or not, the multiracial population will in fact be the largest demographic. And there's really nothing that can be done about that. Another article from Brookings was about immigration. So even if we stopped, they ran a couple different scenarios. If we stopped immigration completely, if we slowed it down to a certain amount, we did nothing, all of that, no matter what, the multiracial population is going to continue increasing, and it in fact will accelerate. Doesn't matter. It's a done deal at this point. So you could close the borders if you want. It's a done deal. You can go ahead and try and deport illegals. It's a done deal. That demographic will be the largest demographic in the United States, certainly by 2060. So that's just food for thought, right? That's just something to mull over a little bit and think on the propaganda that we've been exposed to, all that rhetoric, and why they're tapping into that fear. Why are they doing that? Why are they drumming up that fear for so many white people? And why is it such a big deal? I just thought, wow, how sad is that? How sad is that a group of people just outright doesn't want to share this space, meaning the United States, with other people? Makes no sense to me, but it is what it is. We're going forward, and like I said, multiracial people are making America great. See ya.